What is the task of innovation at the BIS?
So I'm very glad to be here with you today. Innovation has been a theme in Davos for years, but what we're seeing this year is a lot about innovation and how innovation can improve financial markets. And that discussion has started in the private sector, as it should. Innovation, it starts from the private sector, and it's now migrating to the public sector, which is new and exciting. And the BIS wants to be leading that discussion on how innovation can help improve the way we do regulation and how innovation can help improve the way we do monetary policy and even maybe the way we issue money.
But you're helping to design the future of finance. I mean, where does one start in all of this? It's such a huge task.
Well, it's not a new task. I mean, the Financial Stability Board, for instance, has been focusing very much on fintech and how that changes the structure of global financial markets. In the central banking community, we've been upgrading a lot of our systems. We've been moving to real-time payment infrastructures, for instance. The next step is about how that's going to change the very face of money. That is the discussion on central bank digital currency. And it's also about how big data, machine learning, artificial intelligence can help do our job better.
Can the politicians get on board? I just did a panel with Ken Rogoff, and of course his book, one of my books of the year, The Curse of Cash. The beginning of it is this idea of fintech and cashless societies. Where are we right now in the continuum of a few, Sweden and others, getting out front on this? Do you sense the politicians wanting to finally catch up with the courage of Sweden?
They're catching up very fast. They've been spurred by private sector innovation. So, say, the Libra discussion, which has many facets and is problematic in some aspects, has been also a wake-up call for us. And I think there is understanding now that we need to get our act together and decide what we want to do and how we want to do it. But that said, this will go at different paces across jurisdictions. So don't expect it to happen the same way in Sweden, in Switzerland, at the ECB, etc., because that's essentially a political discussion. So at the end, we'll send it back to politicians, to parliaments, for them to decide.
In October, the G7 actually presented a report on stablecoins to guide regulators and technology. But since then, Libra has basically been declared a failure, and there's less public debate about it. Has it moved the question of urgency away?
No, we've kept discussing with Facebook. There are lots of good aspects in Libra on the technological side, on the inclusion side, that we want to leverage. And it's really up to them to come back to us and address our concerns. So I can't comment on that. But it's not, that discussion is live.
Where do you see the biggest advantage to stablecoins?
Well, it's about having a technology that cuts across borders and that can help cut the cost and improve the speed of cross-border payments, which everyone agrees now are too slow and too costly. So I would say the top priority for the global community is not about CBDC. CBDC will come in, so central bank digital currency. It will come in due course in different ways, and we're working on it. But the top urgent priority is to improve cross-border payments, in particular for low-income and developing economies, because that's a matter of financial inclusion, and that's a matter of growth for the global economy.
The delicacies here, and that you can't speak about ECB policy and that, but I want you to broaden the conversation to innovation in Europe. There's an immense mystery in America over why this great subset of nations in Europe can't have the innovation tone that we see every day in America. And I'm going to go to France, Thierry Breton, Madame Lagarde, and others talking about jump-starting French innovation, put the businesses out by CDG and all that. How do we get an innovation spirit in Europe much akin to what we see in entrepreneurial America?
No, it's happening. I mean, if you focus on the fintech scene, for instance, the fintech scene is very lively in Berlin, it's very lively in Paris. So it's happening in a kind of scattered way. And it's true that what needs to be done now is to reconnect this with the top priority of the European Commission, of the European Council, and I'm sure that Mrs. von der Leyen and also Thierry Breton, who's in charge of that, will be leading it. Innovation has to be at the core of political priorities in Europe. I'm sure it's coming.
But the PBSC, for example, is quite advanced in its experiments, right, in central banks and Bitcoin and digital currencies. Is there a danger that Europe gets left behind?
Well, that's exactly the point of what we want to achieve at the BIS, to bring people together. It may happen in different ways in different places, but we want to be sure that this does not create fragmentation. The global financial system is already very fragmented. That's bad for business. That's bad for financial stability. We want to avoid that new discussion on CBDC creates additional fragmentation.
Right, but what if China were to be, the global benchmark? How is that a concern, and how does the BIS address that?
China is a global benchmark, but China is also unique. So we've got to see what's good in what China is doing and what can be used for good purposes outside of China. I'm sure they will be doing it as well. And we want to be sure that whatever is being done in different central banks is done in a consistent way. That's very important.
Away from monetary policy and theory, I must ask your thoughts on a new non-multilateral world. What is the urgency to get the people at Davos back to a multilateral structure? Can we survive in what we're doing now, or do we need to get back to what we knew decades ago?
So here I will speak, from my background as former G20 deputy and former central banker. We need the multilateral framework. I don't think it's coming back, and that's a matter of concern. That's a matter of concern. I see trade, for instance, I see quite a lot of complacency about trade in Davos. It's less of an issue this year than it was last year, for instance. It's very important that we get back to a multilateral structure that creates confidence for the global economy.
Do you see, coming from emerging markets, a real thirst for displacing the dollar as the international reserve currency? And do you even see like a possibility, a very slim chance, that stablecoin could replace it?
So I don't think stablecoins will replace the dollar, because stablecoins are a good proposition from a payment perspective. It's improvement in payments. It's never going to be a global currency. Currencies have to be public. Currencies need to be underpinned by trust in a central bank, trust in a government.